that your empathy, that your clairsentience is your greatest intuitive gift. It is the most powerful predictive tool that you have in your kit.
How can men, especially conscious men, connect with their intuitive nature without feeling like they're losing strength or logic?
You said to the universe, bang on, it's a go. And all of a sudden, you're going to see this snowball effect, right? And you'll begin to hear more and more and more, and it'll become more accurate and more grounded and more magical. Because you'll hear the things that your mental body would have filtered out.
Wanting is, I think, the first level, but if you have to have it because the pain is so much, the unhappiness is so great, the calling is so big that it's like, I have to have this thing. That is when you get the shift. That is when you move. Hey Conscious Man 7 family, quick question before we start. Do you love the depth of these conversations but hate when ads break the flow? I get it. Ads can feel like speed bumps on a highway, pulling you out of that deep zone. That's why we created a way for you to enjoy every episode completely ad-free while supporting the show at the same time. For just a few bucks a month on Patreon or Locals, you'll get full access to uninterrupted episodes. You'll get direct access to me so you can ask me any questions that you have, some cool other perks like early releases, and you'll also help us keep bringing you the powerful conversations that mainstream platforms won't touch. The link is in the show notes. Join us there and be part of this movement. Ever look up and see those dull, grey skies streaked with chemtrails and you feel your energy sink? You're not imagining it. Something in you knows the sky isn't supposed to look that way. But what if you could bring back the blue? What if there was a way to clear the air inside you and above you? That's where the Chembo comes in. They create powerful orgonite, tools that generate orgone energy, the life force that helps neutralize EMFs from your mobile phone, your Wi-Fi, and even 5G. It's nature's way of restoring balance, bringing cleaner air, calmer energy, and deeper sleep. Every piece from the Chembo is handmade, from tactical tower busters to beautiful pyramids and jewelry, crafted with the precise ingredients to generate real orgone energy. And here's the best part. They've proven it. For over 10 years, they've cleared thousands of miles of chemtrails, bringing the blue back to the skies around the world. So if you're ready to take back your weather and your well-being, go to thechembo.com. Use coupon code CM7 for 10% off and experience the shift for yourself. Don't fear the chemtrails or the EMF. Be empowered with the Chembo and never feel helpless again. If you are new to this podcast, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share, because that helps us to be recommended in the algorithms. If you would like to support this podcast, please check out our merch store on Amazon with the brand Todd and Me. We've got some cool t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and sweaters. Link will be in the description of this podcast. And if you're now starting a spiritual journey, you would like to start a spiritual journey, or you're currently on a spiritual journey and you would like some help removing some fears and traumas, please hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 and it will help you to get some magic mushrooms. Enjoy the show and stay tuned because we have some more great content coming soon. Have you ever felt like life is moving too fast, like the world is shifting around you, and yet your inner self is whispering for something deeper? Hello, beautiful and amazing people. Welcome to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. I am your host, Todd Cave. Today, we're diving into awakening without the woo-woo with Teresa Wornstaff, a high-level intuitive, global mentor, and author of Manual for Humanity. She spent over 30 years leading in corporate environments and decades guiding people to reconnect with their soul, align with purpose, and elevate their consciousness, all while staying grounded in modern life. In this episode, Teresa will share how to listen to your soul's guidance, bring spiritual awareness into daily routines, integrate purpose into leadership, and navigate life's chaos with grace. She'll give actionable tools from men, women, and conscious communities, and reveal insights from her new book that could literally change how you make decisions, relate to others, and show up in the world. Buckle up, because this conversation is designed to shift perspectives, spark transformation, and inspire you to live an extraordinary life.
When truth is blurred by lies and misinformation, perception becomes reality. What will you perceive your reality to be?
Liberate your fears and walk with me.
Sit down and meditate. Connect with your soul.
Be a monster and then learn how to control it.
You got to be willing to do the work.
So it really goes really deep in terms of words and etymology and what they mean. So this is why it is really hard to really crack the matrix, because there's so many levels and layers to it, Hello, Teresa. Welcome to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. How are you today?
Oh, Todd, I am so grateful to be here with you and deeply excited for what you and I are going to bring to your audience, because like you said, buckle up, Buttercup. It's going to be a ride.
Yes, I definitely think so, because we were talking before recording, and honestly, what you were telling me was giving me goosebumps, and that is always a sign for me that what you're saying is true. And that's how I always know, because Yeshua always said you will know something is true because it resonates with you. And boy, the stuff that you said to me resonated with me. So I am really excited to talk to you today. And, I want to help my listeners to, pick up their cross, die to their old selves, and to live a life of purpose. Because as we were talking off camera, I think that finding your purpose, living your purpose is going to be the next big shift in the evolution of our consciousness as a species, because so many people are just stuck doing the same old. And in some cases, some people are making loads of money, but they have no purpose. In other cases, people are working hard, barely making it, but still have no purpose. And the end result is the same. They're still not on their purpose. So I try to touch, move, and inspire others that they can make a change. And people like you are teaching people out there on a global scale how to change and give practical tools. So I too am excited to talk to you today. So let's dive right in. So you've described your journey as one of graceful awakening. What was the moment of realization that truly cracked you open to the deeper dimensions of who you are?
Wow, that's a great question, Todd. So let's start in the beginning, shall we?
Please.
I was born with all, like you said, buckle up. I was born with all of my intuitive gifts open and awake.
Wow.
I can remember lying in my crib and playing with the energies that were around me. The different beings, the colors, the waves of energy. When I would daydream, which I did a lot as a kid, mostly in school, I would evoke the places that I would visit in my imagination, which to me were just as real as what I was experiencing in my normal life. So for me, there was no big bang awakening. For me, it was always there. It always has been. And it became this opposing, here's this magical world that I could live in that affirmed my being heart-centered and happy and joyful, and as opposed to this living by default and looking at all the humans in the world and saying, oh, you're so unhappy. I don't want that. And I can remember sitting in the mall with my parents. I was sitting with my dad, and my mom was off shopping with my brothers. And I would stare into people's souls and think to myself, oh, you're so sad and you're so unhappy and you're distracting yourself with all of these things that society has told you are so important, whether it's acquiring things or spending money or doing a job. There was no happiness. That was, I think, for me, the first aha moment that I had growing up.
Wow, that is amazing, because most people tend to go through a process to awakening. Like I was sharing with you off camera, like my awakening came through a lot of pain. And this is why I use personally the term my refinement period, because I find that in my case, it wasn't a dark night of the soul, because when people think of the dark night of the soul, they think of it as like a one-off event, or it happens and then it's finished. But in my case, it was constant refinement. So like how when you mine gold, when you first get it, is doré bars. Then you refine it, 14 karat, then 18 karat, then 22 karat, then 24, then monatomic gold. That is how I felt, where the heat kept going up hotter and hotter, and all the impurities was figuratively coming out of me. But for you, you had these gifts from birth. Like you can remember actually being born, basically. Wow, that is truly amazing.
Yeah. So for me, the journey was actually opposite of what you've talked about.
Yeah.
It was, how can I conform? How can I make my human experience make sense to me? Because in addition to seeing unhappiness in so many people, I would look at the adults in my life and they would lie to me or prevaricate, right? Give me a half truth, and I would know it.
Wow.
I could feel the energy of what they were saying and think to myself, I'm 5 years old, I'm 6 years old, and that adult just lied to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's next level. Ooh, that's next level, because, okay, so they say that when we are operating at a 5D consciousness level, we'll be able to read each other's thoughts, because it would be, this is what some say. So I'm asking a question here. So we would be able to have that ability. And because we will have to be of pure of heart, it means then that we'll be kind of like forced to have integrity. But that is a process that we have to go through to get there. But for you at 5 years old, you are able to have that ability, as they say we would have in the 5D. So how was your childhood then? Was it kind of like very difficult knowing that people are lying to you when you can understand all these things? Like, did it like affect you, like make you sad or depressed or upset, angry? How was it for you then as a child?
All of the above. It was really, really hard. I talk about it in my book, A Manual for Humanity. My childhood was very unsafe. And I apologize if I trigger anybody by sharing this. I was molested 5 times before I was 15. I was raised in a very, very patriarchal environment, and my worth was minimal at best. My worth was conditional upon what I could do for the family. So I was parentified very, very young. It was, so in addition to having an incredibly dysfunctional upbringing, I had all of these gifts, and it was very hard for me to make sense of the world. For example, in addition to knowing when people lied to me, I could feel when somebody made a decision that was completely misaligned with their soul's journey. So I would watch adults make grand announcements about things they were doing or share where they were going. And I would watch as their soul almost came through this staticky misalignment because what they were deciding wasn't optimal for their soul's evolution. And just as you mentioned, you went through your refinement period. When we make decisions that do not align with what is optimal for ourselves, we end up creating situations where the universe comes in and says, no, 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 don't do that. And it does it in many ways. Synchronicities, our attention is diverted, other opportunities present. But if we double down and we stick to the decision that is misaligned for our soul, the universe will continue to bring in messages to move us in a new direction until you get that 2x4 across the head, right?
Yep, I concur. Yeah.
We're both sitting here laughing because we're like, oh yeah, we've done that one a few times.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This is why I always say all the time that, and I tell this to clients and people that even want to work with me for training and coaching, that you have an opportunity now to not go through more pain and to get into shape, change your life and stuff. But the fear of the unknown stops people from pulling the trigger to work with me and to make choices in their life to improve themselves. And I was on that side of the conversation many times, and I didn't believe in myself, and things kept getting worse and worse and worse until the 2x4 was so hard that I got knocked out, and then my personality split, and then I was like, all right, this hurts too much. Let's try something different, because I'm a bit of a stubborn guy. So I tell people, you don't have to be like me, and just use me as an example of what not to do. But for most people, they're not in the minority camp like you that had certain abilities and certain understandings from young, but it was a process that they have to go through. And this seems to be probably, you're the first person I've spoken to, and I've had a lot of conversations on this podcast now, over 100. And you're the first one that actually said there wasn't any refinement process. It was just like, I was born with these things, right? So that is, it's kind of cool, but very unusual.
Very unusual. And my refinement was in a different direction.
Okay.
So for me, I had to figure out how to get along to go along, right? So I had to figure out how to fit into society and dampen all of these gifts so they didn't become consistent 2x4 moments for me.
Got
so
you.
I wasn't consistently blindsided by the things that were going on in my environment.
Okay.
So for me, it was a move in a different direction. It was, how can I quiet my intuition so that I'm impacted less? And how can I figure out how to meet societal conditions so that I fit in?
Wow. That sounds pretty challenging.
That's how I ended up in corporate for 30 years.
Right. So we actually going to touch on that now. So you spent over 30 years in corporate leadership. How did that experience shape the intuitive and spiritual guide you are today?
It has impacted it tremendously. So as I shared, I was raised in a very patriarchal home. My dad was an entrepreneur. And he was exceptional. He was larger than life, charismatic, and he was able to build a company and grow a company, I believe, through his intuition and his charisma and his force of personality. And he did that for his whole life. And what I saw what was demonstrated to me was that my dad, and by extension, to a certain extent, my mom was most happy when they were very successful in business and making money and able to take care of their 4 kids. So moving into business became a natural solution for me. I saw that and said, okay, well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to climb the ladder. And while I've never, ever completely turned off my intuition, I never presented myself in my jobs with my intuition active, but I always used it. So I would know the right person to hire. I would know the right steps to create a cohesive culture or a cohesive team. I would know the right product, the product that was going to create strong sales. I would be able to look at any situation and know intuitively what was the optimal next steps. And here's a good example. One of my favorite projects as a consultant was working with NASA. We spent about 3 years working with them on a project to measure the efficacy of project management in Fortune 500 companies across the world. So NASA basically wanted to know why all these companies, all these corporations were successfully executing projects within project management parameters, and those who know business know what I'm talking about, where NASA was continuously missing deadlines, going out of budget, misallocating resources. It was hard. So we did a study interviewing all these companies: Nike, Bank of America, Microsoft, Eli Lilly, just Chevrolet, just companies from around the world. And my first job in this study was to recruit these large companies. So I would have to call into the C-suite of these companies without having any knowledge of or relationships to tap into. So can you imagine calling Procter and Gamble and saying, gee, I'd like to take 10 of your people and do about $500 hours worth of interviews? That's a tremendous ask, right?
Absolutely.
But intuitively, I knew which companies would say yes. So A, I had to pick the right company. And then B, I had to pick the right person to call. So I had to find somebody in that organization who would A, take my call, and B, say yes.
Wow.
And I was charged with recruiting 30 companies, and it took me 3 months. They figured it was going to take me at least a year.
Wow. Have you, by chance, ever watched that cartoon called Thundercats?
No.
Okay, so there's a character in there in the cartoon. For people that born in the 80s and like cartoons and anime, they would know this cartoon. So there was a character called Lionel. He was the protagonist. And he had this sword, right? It was the sword of omens. And when he wanted to see like what's going on, like in a different part of the world or something, he used to put the sword to his face and used to say, "Sword of omens, give me sight beyond sight." And he would see literally what you were talking about was what the sword of omens did. So as you were speaking, that memory just came back as when I was a child. And I'm like, well, she's talking about the sword of omens here, where she's literally looking into the companies and seeing who is the right person to speak to and what is the right company to speak to in the first place. So like all the way Caribbean people, all the way people that watch the cats, they know exactly what I'm talking about. And they'll be like, oh yeah, that's sort of woman's stuff there, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, so Many people hit a wall before awakening. What was there a personal crisis or turning point that made you reevaluate what success really meant?
Yeah, there was. So for 20 of the 30 years that I was in corporate America, I would do consulting on the side. I would do my intuitive work. I would take classes. I would grow, but it was always on the down low. Like I never was intuitive forward. And in 2020, but let me back up. In 2019, I rebuilt my website. I was working for a local company, managing a team. And I decided I got to get out of corporate. I got to get out. I got to do my own thing again. I got to start consulting to businesses again. Built my website. 2020, I was laid off in January. They eliminated my position, of course. And then COVID hit. Now I'm in Seattle, which was the epicenter of COVID for the United States. So it was here, literally down the street, that we first began the systematic shutdown of the cities. And so there I was, no longer employed. And I was told I could no longer promote my business the way I'd known my whole life to promote my business. And as a matter of fact, nobody, as we found out in 2020, was interested in bringing in outside consultants because they were so busy scaffolding their own business to continue to operate through this global shutdown. At that point, I didn't have to. I chose to sit down with myself and say, okay, I'm being redirected. Because everything in life happens for you, right? It doesn't happen to you. It happens for you to redirect you where you need to go. So what am I supposed to be doing? And I literally spent 2020 trying to figure that out. And do you know, Todd, this is going to blow your mind. It wasn't until 2021 that I even put the word intuitive on my website.
And you've been using intuition your entire life.
Yep.
Wow.
And it's my greatest gift. It is my greatest skill. It is my greatest gift. And I've done my own soul contract. It is absolutely 100% why I'm on this planet. I am here to share information so other people can grow and thrive. And yet, I wasn't present to it. Isn't that 2021? It's only been a few years. Isn't that wild?
Very wild, because you've been doing this your entire life.
Yeah.
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah.
Okay. So you say your mission is to normalize spirituality. What does that actually look like in action? In the boardroom, the home, or daily routines?
Yeah, so let's look at that from two perspectives. Number one, how do we do that at the personal level? So I'm going to take two steps back and let's talk about intuition. Okay?
Sure.
Because I think people have this perception that intuition is untouchable, that they don't have it, or they only have a little bit of it, or they're not very good at it. That's the way most people feel about their intuition.
I concur.
Let's define intuition so we can normalize it, because that's the first step in normalizing spirituality. All of our physical senses are mirrored by our intuition. So we have sight, we have hearing, we have cognitive, which is our mental capacity. We have taste, smell. We have empathy, which is physical. What we've done societally for hundreds of years is cut them off at the physical level. We've said, oh no, I can only feel things that I can touch. Well, we all know that's inaccurate because we have this whole emotional body that gives us feelings all of the time. And I'm here to affirm for every single person listening that your empathy, that your clairsentience is your greatest intuitive gift. It is the most powerful predictive tool that you have in your kit. And yet virtually everyone on this planet is ignoring it. So if you run into a person and you feel, oof, I don't know about this person. I'm not jiving with them. This is not my people. Or if you run into a person, you think, damn, I kind of like this person. I want to know more about them because this feels good. Dude, that's intuition. That's intuition. The same with the job, the same with your partner, the same with your kids. You know, your kids in front of you, they say, hey, I want to go do this, stay over at a friend's house, or I want to go participate in this league. And you get that feeling of excitement. That's an affirmation. That's a confirmation that that's an optimal step to take. If you get the ick, stop. That's not for you or for them because we make decisions on behalf of our children. Well, in concert with them. So, sight. Let's look at sight. Okay, clairvoyance. We all have an inner screen in our mind. We can use it as a construct to build visions in our mind. We can use it to play movies in our mind. We can use it to recall things that we've seen or experienced. That is a predictive gift. That is the signal of what your guides and your soul want you to see. Here's another way. You're driving down the freeway, and all of a sudden your mind, your eye is drawn to a billboard that has a message. That message is for you. Your intuition said, look at that billboard. Receive that visual information because it's for you. You're in the grocery store. You overhear a conversation. That conversation is for you, but that's intuition. You're not thinking, I'm going to go listen to that lady because she may have a message for me. You're not thinking, I'm going to read every billboard I pass on my drive on the freeway. You're simply responding to external conditions in your world and allowing your attention to be drawn where your soul or your guides want it to go. That's intuition. Pretty simple, isn't it?
Yes, very. I think that's one of the best descriptions I've ever heard of intuition, because it's true. When you use the word intuition, people start to think, oh, it's a talent that I don't have, or is something that I would need to work on. But basically, everything you described there is intuition. Just that message, that inner voice, like, when you walk in the room and you feel this, like, nah, I don't want to be here. All of that's intuition. And what's mad? Because basically, even though I wasn't born like you with intuition, what happened in my process is that I have to use intuition now in order to do what I do, because I chose my assistant off of intuition. She never had any experience in doing anything that she does for me now. And I spoke to her and she says, I can do it, coach. I said, okay. And that was it. Right. And it was just the feeling I had. And without her, honestly, I do not know where it would be. And I always give her credit because she is such an important part of this show. To give you a context, she chose you to come on the show, because what I do now is that she's been working with me for a while. She knows me very well. I said, okay, look, I'm going to let you help me with the podcast now because she helps me in the fitness business. And I said to her, I'm going to give you you write a summary and you tell me who you think. And most of the people she puts before me, I say yes to, most of them, because she knows exactly. And she writes in a way that is like, okay, so when I saw you, it's like, okay. So, and honestly, right, like her picks, she helps me with my reels on social media. So she picks those as well. So basically, I chose her purely from intuition. She had zero experience, and something inside of me said to me, pick her, because I could have chosen another person that had more experience. But
Yeah.
The voice, as I always say all the time, because I'm clairaudient. So mine is the voice. The voice, I don't necessarily feel, but I hear. And the voice speaks and is 2 words, pick her. I said, okay. That was it.
I love that. That's a great example. And I want to offer, Todd, that you and everyone listening and everybody on the planet is actually born with all your gifts intact. We systematically close them down so that we can fit in a little bit better. And the second thing I want to point out is you have provided a profound example of how to grow your intuition. Identify which one is primary, because we have all of them. Identify which one is primary, yours is clairaudient, and pay attention, because the more you listen, the more intuitive hits you'll get, the more accurate you will become, because what you're doing is you're refining your communication with the world, right? The energy around us, the people around us, our guides, and our soul. So by listening, affirming you received really great intuition, by hiring your assistant, you said to the universe, bang on, it's a go. And all of a sudden, you're going to see this snowball effect, right? And you'll begin to hear more and more and more, and it'll become more accurate and more grounded and more magical. Because you'll hear the things that your mental body would have filtered out. Okay, what does that mean? That means that if it doesn't already exist in your cognitive mind, if it doesn't already exist in your reality, we have a tendency to filter things out and say, whatever, that's nonsense. That doesn't make sense. I don't understand that. We ignore it. And yet, when you have such a strong relationship with your intuition that you say, wait, what'd you say? Wait, what did I just hear? What was that? By staying curious, you invite in more and more magic. Because you don't know what you don't know. And unless you're curious, you'll never find out. And by staying curious, you let go of judgment, because you can't be curious and in judgment at the same time. Right? Pretty awesome, isn't it? And that's how to normalize spirituality. And that's how to grow your intuition.
Wow. You just blew my mind there. Yeah, honestly, because basically this is what has happened to me where, like, and I've said this a couple of times on my show, even though I am very, very masculine in everything I do, because I used to be a civil engineer, what's happened to me now is that approach has only gotten me so far in my life. And what I've been forced to do now is embrace the feminine part, which is more the intuition, the more the allowing things to happen and stuff. So I kind of like literally do everything now based on intuition now, in terms of like when to do things. And like, seriously, it would just be like, okay, boom. Like, I've just reached out to this guy on Twitter to come on the show. He's been on the show before, and I had messaged him before, but he never replied to me. Asana just told me, message him. He got back to me today. He told me, yep, so we can do the show in 2 weeks. I was like, wow. So, you know what I mean? And the voice literally said to me, message him. And now whenever the voice says things, I just stop what I'm doing now. Even if I'm cooking, I'm just going to stop and go and do that thing because the voice said to do it, and I do it. And honestly, it hasn't ever put me wrong, you know? So, okay.
And it never will. It never will, because that's the voice of your soul. That's the voice of intuition. That's your communication with something that is so profoundly great that wants to be born through you. That is you living your purpose.
Interesting. So you teach spirituality without the woo-woo. What does that mean, and how can we bring higher awareness into our lives without losing our logical edge?
Yeah, I think this is where my business brain really comes into play. I'm a kinesthetic learner, but I'm also very logical. And as an engineer, I know you can relate to this. I want things to make sense. And for me to have things make sense, I want context, but I want relatable context. So when I talk about woo-woo, it's like explaining intuition. Okay. Literally, I sat down and said, okay, universe, what is this intuition thing? Tell me what the construct of intuition is. And they did. And all of a sudden, I was able to put all these pieces together and create a story which everybody can relate to, right? Everybody can relate to their physical senses, and then they can entertain the thought that those physical senses are even broader in spectrum than what we originally thought. And then you can relate to thinking of somebody and they call you, even though you haven't talked in 3 years, seeing the billboard, hearing the conversation, by making it relatable, by making it accessible. I want spirituality to be accessible. I want people to know that it's not separate from them. It's a part of them. And it is, it's their greatest tool to construct their life. And I want people to know how powerful they are. That you don't need to abdicate responsibility or look to somebody else to tell you what to do or give somebody else your power. You have, oh God, this one just hits me in the heart. You have everything you need to be successful if you allow yourself to step into that concept.
Okay, so for those who are skeptical, how can they begin cultivating spiritual awareness in a grounded, evidence-based way?
Yeah, exactly what we just said. Every time you have an intuitive hit, every time you have a nudge in a direction, every time you have synchronicity, make note of it. Take note, acknowledge it, stop and acknowledge it. Because the more you acknowledge, the more you'll see. We receive literally thousands of messages every single day. Whether it's while you're surfing Google, researching an idea, or you're grocery shopping, or you're driving down the street, or you have a conversation with a friend. Through every experience we have, our guides, our soul is sending us messages so that we can become the greatest version of ourselves, that we can realize our power, so that we can turn our life in a direction that is generative and hopeful. It doesn't eliminate the hard things. It doesn't eliminate the sad things. But what it does is continuously move you forward on that evolutionary path of growth and learning. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it really does, because I find that a lot of us, especially like me being a former civil engineer, I need evidence. And a lot of people that are like into scientific fields, the STEM fields, they tend to have to need to evidence based. And the thing is that what I tend to say now is that it is not always black and white. It's very much gray. But when you get enough gray, that actually provides the evidence. So one of my mentors, he always used to say that you get confirmations of truth. So what happens is that you will hear, and this is why I always say to people, like, if you hear something and it doesn't necessarily resonate with you, put it on the shelf. Just put it on the shelf, because another time you may hear something very similar to what's on the shelf. You'll be like, okay, I'm not too sure about that. All right, put that on the shelf as well. And then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, you hear the same thing in a slightly different way. You're forced now to go back to the shelf and say, okay, so I have had 7 confirmations of this thing. So this thing has to be real and true. So for the STEM people, the engineers, the people that want the black and white, just put things on the shelf, and truth isn't learned. Truth is realized, right? And what happens is that you get confirmations of the truth. So a lot of people have asked me, so Todd, how come you say a lot of stuff? How do you know these things are true? I say, well, I've had confirmations of these things. So because I've had multiple confirmations of things, I would say that I have a very, very high degree of certainty that what the things I say is true. Now, if something else comes that has a different perspective, I'm going to put that on the shelf. And if I get multiple confirmations now that counteracts the thing that I thought was true, then that thing then has to be the truth, because I've had confirmations and it supersedes the information, because people seem to think that even truth is absolute. Truth is not linear. Truth is multidimensional. So as we grow as a species, we're going to realize that the level of truth is going to go up. So the thing that may be true for that level of understanding is no longer true because you have a higher level of understanding. So, I very much concur. I very much concur in what you say, and I just use a slightly different terminology, but we basically say the same thing.
Yeah, 100%. Truth is evolutionary. It's also subjective.
True.
It's subjected to my reality, because my truth might be slightly different than yours, because that's what I need to see in order to come to the realization that is meant for me. So I agree.
One of my mentors, he uses an example that's very, very interesting. So he would say, okay, so there are two, this here, you're seeing red. So that is true to you. On this side where I'm seeing is black. So this is also true to me. The thing is, we're talking about the exact same object, but from different sides. So we're both telling the truth, but it is depending on what side we're on that makes it true to us. So what I try to tell people is, like, sometimes you may need to just shift slightly and realize that there actually is another level of truth or another version of truth. So it's kind of hard for people that live in absolutes to understand that, two things can actually be true at the same time. So you could be seeing red, which is true. I'm seeing black on my side, which is true. So that's another confirmation there to show the exact same thing that we were saying,
Well, and I find that people who live in absolutes do so from fear. They're trying to control their environment, because if they don't control their environment, they won't be safe. And that's a primary root challenge. Opportunity is how I look at it. So allowing yourself, there's 3 tools that I coach people to use: curiosity, neutrality, and patience. Because for me to expand my awareness to include a new truth or a new concept or a new experience that heretofore wasn't part of my reality, I need to have all three ingredients. I need to be curious so that I stay out of judgment. I need to be neutral so that I don't make assumptions based on what I knew. And I need to be patient because I'm constructing a platform of change for myself. And as humans, we're change adverse. We will run in any direction except towards change. So we need to be patient with ourselves to allow it to unfold. And this is where we move into the intuition. One of the things that I ask the universe a lot: is this for me? Is this for me? Simple. And if you get a yes, then you use curiosity, neutrality, and patience. And what message that wants to come through to you will evolve, will allow you, those three conditions will allow you to open up to new ways of being. This is how we grow. It's not comfortable. We would never learn anything if our life was flatlined and just happy all the time. Humans, by habit, need adversity and change to grow and evolve.
That's so sad, but true.
Well, but hey, so let's contextualize that, right? If we look at life that everything happens for you instead of to you, that's a really subtle shift.
True. It's just like the pain, the pain, man. Like, I remember the days of the pain, and I'm like, I never want to go back there again. So I'm kind of just thinking of the people like, pain. Well, I guess like Lao Tzu said, pain is inevitable and suffering is a choice. So sadly, this is what he said, sadly, it seems to be an absolute where we have to have some level of pain in order to make change. And it just seems to be how it is.
Well, and so if we didn't have pain or sadness or grief, we wouldn't know what love or hope or joy was. You have to have the contrast. This is a world of duality, right? And like you said, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. If you approached any of the situations that you've gone through in the past that caused pain, if you instead said, wow, this really sucks, and I wonder what's on the other side of this. Because if I am courageous enough, and it does take courage, if I'm courageous enough to move through the pain, what's available to me on the other side is the paradigm opposite. So if you're on a scale of 1 to 10 and the pain is a 2 and love is a 10, that means I'm going to hit an 8.
For sure.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are 3 simple practices anyone can use today to align with their soul without meditating on a mountaintop?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm a little ADHD. I got to be honest. It's true. I get my squirrel moments more often than I get my meditative om moments. And what I have found is that meditation is not sitting on a poof on the top of a mountain. It just isn't. Meditation is going within. So the 3 things that I encourage people to do is, number 1, go within. Learn who you are. Shut everything out, shut everything up, and decide what's in here. What are your emotions? What are your mental constructs? Which ones do you like? Which ones do you want to keep? Which ones are like, that's a little bit of a pain point. I think I need to evolve that into my next 8 experience. But learn who you are. Number 2, meditation looks like whatever you define it as. For me, meditation is being in nature. Meditation is taking a walk. I'm a walker. Get me out of the house and I'll just walk for miles because it allows my imagination and my intuition free rein. I'm also a driver. It's not scary. I'm a really good driver. Y'all are safe driving on the road with me. But because my mind is so focused on the driving, it allows all the other parts of me free rein to roam and learn and hear whatever the universe wants to tell me. So find your way of meditating. You don't have to do it for an hour. Even 5 minutes is better than nothing. So when you begin to move into these pieces of yourself, when you go within, when you give yourself permission to meditate, whatever that means to you, the third piece is listening and taking action. Actually receive the information. Like you said, if it makes no sense in the moment, put it on the shelf. It will later. And respond. This is a free will planet. So we need to respond. And I'm not talking about creating a spreadsheet or a project plan. I'm not talking about any of that. Just by saying, yes, I'll engage, you're taking action. If it makes sense to take a step forward, take that step. But whatever it is, the moment you take that step, the world says, woo, hold on, she's responding. We got her attention. Let's bring in the next one. Let's bring in the next step. So go within, meditate, affirm everything you want to create about yourself within yourself. Receive it and take a step. How's that?
You know, you said that so beautiful because I have had conversations with people that have reached out to me that wanted to train with me, get into shape and stuff. And I have had conversations with people where they have admitted that they are afraid to say yes because they failed in the past. I have had the conversation where I said, but your past doesn't have to dictate your future because that showed you how not to do things. And here is a different way. And basically I said, look, the universe has aligned you and me to have this conversation right now. And I can absolutely help you. But a couple of people said to me, literally point blank, that the fear of failure is so much for them that they will just rather do it on their own, even though they've done the same thing over and over and over and admitted that they're going to go and do the exact same thing they were doing because the fear was so great. And I said, look, if you say yes and you're not sure you can do it, the universe is literally going to give you the time, the money, the scheduling, all of these things in the background are going to happen simply because you said yes. And what you said is like, the universe is just going to give you the next step. And that is so true. And I say to people, I can't give you a book to read or a magic pill to take. But what I have seen in all of my clients and in myself is when I've said yes and they have said yes when they were not sure, those people actually get the best results when I coach them. And it's just mad because you step into this. And I remember it's kind of like where I'm at now, I get comfortable being uncomfortable. And you're still uncomfortable, but is this sort of like, all right, well, it's uncomfortable, but I'll do it anyway. You know what? Sorry, I'll just do it, right? And this is the kind of mindset that you need to have. But some people, the fear is so great that they literally say no, and that kills all possibilities that can be created. So the universe doesn't bring the next step because the universe needs to have proof and evidence, or to be sure, are you actually ready? Do you really want this? So here is the next test for you to confront. And if you say yes and you jump right in, you'll figure it out. You'll just figure it out, because that's what humans do. We figure it out, you know? But
Yeah.
a lot of people, they stay in the comfort zone and they want to stay safe. And I always say to people that comfort zones are the places where dreams and goals go to die, right?
Yep. 100%. Well said, Todd. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
you know, so this is why
I had a client. She is a very successful in her field, and she wanted a promotion. She's like, I've been doing this for 3 years. I'm ready to take it to the next step. And she got one. She got offered a promotion. It was not what she wanted. It was not how she wanted to grow in the company. And it was not the most important piece. It was not aligned with her values and interests. So we talked, and she's like, but it's significantly more money. It's freedom of schedule. It's blah, blah, blah. I said, but it's not aligned within. So she turned it down. She said no. And I asked her, I said, how do you feel? And she said, scared. Scared that I just said no to something that I should have said yes to. And I reminded her, but it wasn't aligned with your values and interests. It didn't pull from your brilliance. It didn't pull from the things that you love to do. We talked on Friday. Got another job offer.
Oh, gosh.
And it was exactly what she wanted.
Wow.
And there was no more than 3 weeks between one job offer and the next. But she told the universe, no, that's not it. This is it. And she got it. So being scared is just a emotional response. When we stay aligned to that within, when we understand what is the most essential expression of ourselves, our values, our passions, our interests, and we say true to that, it shows up. It shows up.
Definitely.
And it was scary saying no, right?
Absolutely, because, you know, the logical mind would be like, but it's so much more, it's more money, you have freedom of schedule, you have all of these things, and you try to rationalize it. But the higher self was like, no, this isn't for you. And this is why I touched on earlier in the conversation. He said that some people are doing jobs that they make a lot of money, but it's just not their purpose. And
yeah.
I find that now where our consciousness as a species is shifting is that it's all about purpose. So for me, I can categorically say that what I do as a coach, helping spiritually inclined people burn fat and build muscle, and doing a podcast, talking to people like you, is my exact absolute purpose. And there's another thing that I was shown recently that I have to do that I haven't shared with the world yet. But when I said to my mother what it was, she said, that's grandioso. And I was like, okay, that's the word I was looking for. So basically, one of my mentors said that if your dreams are not, they don't scare you, they're not big enough. And I'm like, okay, so this is so big that I'm like, okay, I think this is it, right? So, but the funny thing is that everything I'm doing now is actually paving the groundwork for it, because I've actually seen the vision of it. So while it's scary, it's exciting at the same time. And because I have both the intuition now and I work hard, because that's the civil engineer in me, the doer, you know, but putting them two together, I know it's going to work out. And I think that, you know, fear is a really interesting emotion, and is really false evidence appearing real. And I find that we have to have a better relationship with fear, in the sense where, like, okay, I fear this thing, but it's just a fleeting emotion. And the more times you do the things that you fear, you end up being comfortable, being uncomfortable, because even though it makes you scared, your higher self, your intuition, the voice, the calling, whatever resonates for you in your situation, you just go with it because it's fulfilling your passion. It lights you up on the inside, but it's scary as hell. But because you have that sort of like fear and excitement at the same time, you tend to excel in it, because what happens is that the excitement pulls you more, right? And then the fear pushes you from behind. So you have the pushing of the fear and the pulling of the excitement. So you get this burst of momentum that creates all these new possibilities. So I'm kind of starting to realizing that fear is good. It's scary, but it's actually good, right? And it's just a shift in perception we need to have to do, because I'll share something with people to give context. When I first was shown in 2019 that I have to make videos and speak on camera, I was terrified, right? And I started to speak, and like when I look back at some of my old videos that I have on my external hard drives, the guy that was speaking on camera isn't the guy I am today. And yes, I was speaking, but I could see the fear in me on being on camera. But I just listened and I just kept doing it. And I've probably made about 1,000 videos by now, to be honest with you. So now speaking on camera is like having a conversation in the street, right? So, but that came from the fear, excitement, and just doing exactly what my higher self to do. And I started out doing a lot of videos on social media, and now I have a podcast in long form, which is exciting to me, to be honest.
It is, and it's aligned with what you're meant to be doing, and you can feel that. And here's another point of evidence for people to go within. Fear is a spectrum, right? There's fear, don't walk down the alley and face those three big guys with baseball bats in their hand who are pissed drunk and angry. There's one spectrum of fear. And there's the other side of fear that you're talking about, that fear that this is completely different. It's completely unknown. And yet it's tinged with a level of excitement that propels you forward. So when we have the ability to go within and say, okay, I'm a little fearful here. Where is it on the spectrum? Anything above a 5, you got to take a step. If there's any excitement there, it's for you. If it's nothing but terror and fear because it's not for you, your body will tell you. This is, cultivating that inner landscape is essential, because you learn your signals, right? Like, hey, if I've got fear and there's excitement, there's a push-pull moving me into my destiny. Yes, I am all in. Maybe uncomfortable, but I'm all in because I can do uncomfortable.
Yes, most definitely. Wow. I tell you, right? This conversation is so exciting for me. I'm trying my best to contain my excitement, because I knew when we first started to speak off camera that this is going to be a great conversation. And all I can say is wow so far. So you talk about listening to your inner soul compass. How can we tell the difference between intuition and fear when making decisions?
Yeah, I think it's getting to know your spectrum. Really cultivating trust in yourself and looking within. When we take time to listen to ourselves and do that continuously, no matter the situation, we're going to learn what our number 2 fear is and what our number 8 fear is, and very quickly be able to tell the difference. And the more that we do that, the more that we affirm that we're living by our intuition, the more that we affirm that there's more for us, that we're worthy of receiving more, and more doors open. We're not meant to be comfortable. We're not meant to jump into the easy chair, kick up our heels, grab a glass of wine or whatever your preferred drink is, and turn on the telly. That's not life. Life isn't lived in our comfort zone. Life is lived when there's a little bit of adventure, a little bit of excitement, a little bit of diversity, a little bit of new and different. One of my values is adventure. My dream used to be having an unlimited platinum card, skydive into a country, and be let loose to do whatever I want. I know, right? Like, just let me loose. I am a adventure traveler. I travel by myself more than I travel with friends and family because I prefer it. I listen to my intuition. My intuition tells me to go places and do things that I normally wouldn't do. It pushes me outside my comfort zone. The other thing it does, Todd, and we haven't touched on this a lot, but it's, God, I'm getting a big wave of emotion. But I think it's really essential. Life is about connection. Life is about having these conversations. Life is about supporting ourselves by allowing other people into our lives to share their wisdom. Like, one of the first things when you said you're starting on a new adventure, a new business adventure, the first thing I wanted to say was, great, let me know how I can support you. Let me know what I can do to support your endeavor. To me, that is the most valuable thing we can bring to this planet. And that includes stopping in a tiny village in the south of France or in China or in Belize and meeting the locals and learning who they are and learning from them, but not learning up here in the head, learning in the heart, connecting at the heart and seeing the essential beauty of the human, that love, that connection. When we allow ourselves to do that, to me, and I'm just speaking on my own behalf, that's the pinnacle of living a good life.
So again, you've blown my mind, because I was going to say that when we finish recording, I'm going to talk to you about it, because I think it will resonate with you. And here it is, you're saying that when I said it, you were thinking, how can I be part of it? So, wow, okay. So this is a lot of synchronicity and alignment here. So this is very magical, to say the least, for me, you know?
Yeah.
I knew that this...
And that's what we want everybody's life to look like, right? Magic.
Yeah, because I said to you before we started to record, I said, this is going to be a great conversation, but I think it just went to another level. So, wow. So guys, we can take a very short break here to say, if what Teresa is sharing right now is hitting home, if it's reminding you that awakening doesn't have to look wild or weird, it can be calm, grounded, and real, then take a quick second right now. Hit that follow or subscribe button, leave us a 5-star review, and share this episode with someone you care about. Because here's the truth. So many people are searching outside themselves for meaning when the wisdom they need is already inside them. This is what the Conscious Man 7 podcast is about, helping you awaken without the woo-woo and live a powerful, purpose-driven life. So let's breathe that in, and let's keep going. So, you bridge spiritual intelligence and business leadership. What does a conscious business actually look like in 2025 and beyond?
Great question. So I'm going to give you, let's start with context, because you and I seem to do really well with that. When I look at a business, I look at both the cultural aspects and I look at the energetic aspect. So let me explain what I mean by that. A business is an organism, just like a human is an organism, and it has an energetic structure. So the human structure is we have a bubble, which is the outermost layer of our personal energy systems. Then we have layers within: mental, physical, spiritual, etheric, all these different layers that have unique properties, like our organs have unique properties, right? A business construct mirrors the human energetic construct. So we have a bubble, and the bubble is the last protection between the individual's energy or the business's energy and the world, everything outside. And you want your bubble to be impermeable. You want it to be flexible so it can grow or constrict based on needs in the moment. You want that bubble to be safe, be a boundary, and to also provide a mirror for what's coming in so that you can see things before they actually enter into your energy system. You know, kind of like the moat, the wall, the moat around the castle, right? So a business has a bubble, and the people who influence and maintain the health of the bubble are primarily the CEO, but it is the executive team. They're the ones that create safety, create security, create boundaries through values, vision, mission. They're the ones who define what the construct will hold and will not hold. Are we product, service based? Does that make sense? And then we have the layers within. So let's start with the mental. The mental body for ourselves is all of the mental thoughts and constructs that we have, that we create, that we allow in. For a business, the mental construct or the mental energy layer is the health of that is largely determined through finance, analytics, so all of the mental stuff, right? The rules, the regulations, to a certain extent, HR, because those are rules and regulations. Then you have the emotional body, right? The emotional body is the health of the emotional body is contributed by sales, marketing, customer service, product development. Then you have the physical layer, which is largely determined by operations. Anytime you have to execute, so your projects. And the etheric layer, which is the spirit or the spiritual layer rather, is largely determined by the leadership. So the CEO and your executive team have the bubble. The spiritual is your leadership teams, the people who actually motivate the individuals who are executing within each department. So it's important that every aspect understand how they're contributing and that they maintain great health. And by that, I mean that we are attending to all the values, we're attending to the mission, we are attending to relationships, right? So that when you are relating to your vendors, that it's mutually collaborative and beneficial when you're relating to customers or clients, that everybody is winning and you're serving the outer world in a good way, in an aligned way, in a way that everybody agrees upon. And it is constantly attending to those different points of the energy system. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does.
Yeah. And today's world, our companies, our corporations' primary mandate is to be profitable, right?
Correct.
That, in my parlance, is completely misaligned. Finances are not an objective, they're an outcome.
Okay.
So
that's a shift in mindset, to be honest with you.
Huge shift. But let me tell you why. If you attend to your relationships, if you attend to your culture, all of your bodies, right? If everything is maintained and healthy, just like we talked about the individual going within and manifesting what they want to create in the world, so too will the business entity. So if you have maintained good connections, you have great vendors, great clients, great teams, and you are always doing the right thing, you will naturally be successful. And if you're naturally successful, all of your financial needs will be met. Let me say it this way. If you say I want to grow 10% year over year, you've just limited yourself.
True, because you put a number on it, you put a cap, because you could actually grow even more.
Right. And just like our natural systems, right? Some years we're meant to grow more, some years we're not. Some years need to be generative. We need to put into the company so that the company can create the environment to sustain a 15 or 20% year over year growth. If you ask for a 15 or 10 or 20% year over year growth and you don't have the culture to hold it, to nurture it, to grow it in a generative way, it becomes, you won't hit the mark. You just won't hit the mark. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And two things came up to me just now. And I think one of the most important things from what you said is basically relationships, because relationships with vendors, the people in the company working, clients, customer service, it's all about the relationship. And then obviously, like you said, the business is almost like a human because it has a cycle, because there's some times where you have growth in yourself, and then other times where it doesn't feel like growth, but it's kind of like a learning period or an investment period into yourself. So the numbers may not show you physically grew, but the experience that you gained or the investment you made will profit you for the next year or the next season or the next cycle. So then what happens is that it may look like a dip, but the next year you have this hockey stick moment. So when you draw a line on the trajectory, you're actually going up, but you had a down moment. So that down moment is actually what created the up moment. So again, it's a very big shift in mindset, because in business, because I'm an entrepreneur as well, I realize that we tend to focus a lot on just the number, like how much you want to make per year. But we're shifting the mindset now to be like, okay, so you can't put a cap on how much you grow. And then obviously it's cyclical, just like life. So there's some moments you invest, other moments you grow, other moments maybe you have to downsize to adapt, and then you can go up again. And yeah, so this is very interesting that the way you talk about bringing spirituality and consciousness into business, because I don't think there are many businesses out here that have that kind of concept or consciousness in the work culture, to be honest with you.
No, there's not a lot. Right now, most businesses are focused in two directions that would align with spirituality. One is culture. There's a big push now to make sure you have a healthy culture. And the other place where companies are becoming more spiritual is becoming B Corps, where they're actually, a B Corp is, they have to meet certain criteria and they have to give back as much as they take. It has a lot to do with the environment.
Okay, I see.
So those are the two areas that I see businesses growing. I will say that I participated in a program for 4 years called the Inner MBA, and we are seeing it more. We are seeing spirituality in businesses more and more at the entrepreneur level. And we're seeing more and more people flee corporate environment and choose entrepreneurship for that very reason. So if you look at the number of individuals who are starting their own business, they have a side hustle, whatever you want to call it, right? That's increasing exponentially. And that's why.
Very interesting. I think I actually said this in a previous show, and I think that we're going to be forced to do that in order to adapt for what is coming, because we're going to have a massive change from next year onward. Between 2026 and 2032 is going to be a huge bifurcation of the consciousness and of these systems, right? So I do think entrepreneurship is going to be something that we're going to have to do. But the thing is, entrepreneurship is extremely hard. Like, I honestly think now that entrepreneurship is another spiritual journey in itself. And if you're having a spiritual journey and being an entrepreneur at the same time, oh my gosh, welcome to my world. Welcome to my world. Yeah. That is exactly what I've had to go through. I had a spiritual journey and doing entrepreneurship at the same time. And a lot of stuff comes up as double. That's why the fire got so hot for me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So being an entrepreneur teaches you a lot about yourself and about people. And I can now see why most businesses fail within 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
So,
but we're seeing a lot of our systems across the planet shift and change. Look at the political system in the United States. It's just a shit show.
True.
Can I say that?
Yeah.
Okay. And it needs to be, because it needs to change. The same with all of our socioeconomic structures. They need to change. They need to evolve to reflect where humanity is. And that's what we're doing. We're systematically breaking things down so we can rebuild them in alignment with the values that are important to us now. And that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong. It's like, and this is a strong value for me. I don't put my money into anything I don't believe in. I don't shop in stores that aren't aligned to my values. I don't buy things that don't reflect my values. I simply don't shop at a lot of these mega stores. And I understand there's a lot of people out there that, I'm going to pick on Walmart, but that say there's only a Walmart around me. That's all I've got. I get that. You don't have choice. I do. I live in a large metropolis, and I choose not to shop at those type of places, but rather put my money into organizations like Grove. I can get anything at Grove that I can get at Walmart, and it's shipped to me. So we can put our dollars into things that reflect our values. We can put our energy towards things that reflect our values, like I make a point of working with the homeless in one way or another. Every week, I do something to help somebody who's unhoused or who's food insecure or who's job insecure. So it's these small actions. You don't have to go change your career or change your whole way of life. But if you take 5 minutes or do one thing that aligns with your values, that's how we start to change the social, economic, political structures that are currently having a tremendous influence on the world. Make sense?
Absolutely, it does. It does. So many leaders fear that bringing spirituality into business might make them seem unprofessional. How can they integrate it authentically without crossing boundaries?
Well, that's a great question. First, does it align with your personal values? If it doesn't, don't do it. Because you're being disingenuous then, right? If it aligns with your personal values and you are honest and vulnerable and authentic with your teams, they already know you're spiritual. And just by virtue of who you are being, you are having an spiritual influence on everybody. And ask, what would help us create a better culture? You know, it's like we put intuition and all these other things into context. Do the same for your teams. Take your team and say, okay, how can I support you better? What do you need? And look to your people to tell you what they need, to tell you where to start, rather than impose direction. One of the outcomes of the NASA study was change should be driven bottom up. What that means is that the people doing the work will tell you the most efficient and effective way to execute. Also, look to your people, look to your cultures. Are you hiring people with like-minded belief systems? Are you hiring spiritual people? If you're not, and you try to make a spiritual implementation, they're going to quit. They're going to leave because it doesn't align with them.
True.
So, you know, you do it carefully and you let people tell you what they want, I think is what I would say.
Yeah, and that is actually what one of my mentors has said to me, because he ran a multi-million-pound company, and he said to me that his company grew exponentially after he had a meeting with all the staff, and he asked them literally that question: what do you all need, or how will you all make this business work better? And they all were kind of afraid to tell him, but then he said, no, just tell me what you want. Tell me what you want me to do, and I'll go out there and I'll do it. And he said that after that, the company grew because everybody did things in the way they wanted, because it just worked better. And everybody was happy because it was like the systems that they put in place are the systems that the people that were doing the work knew would work better. And he just let them get on with it. And, you know, he said that he had great success. So yeah, there's another story for you to confirm what you were saying, you know? So,
well, and it's not only a one and done thing. It's something you have to live. You have to constantly be listening to what your people want. It's not that you go in and say, what do you need? Okay, we'll make all these changes. It's that nuanced conversation. It's that connection that we talked about earlier. If your leadership is continuously having conversations with their teams and understanding, getting ahead of that curve, getting ahead of that overarching conversation, what do we need to do as a company that you have once a year? If they're doing it on a daily basis, you're going to have continued success, and you're going to foster an environment of continuous growth, because people will naturally ask for something that will help them grow and learn. And if they're better at what they do, they're going to turn out a better product. They're going to be happier. They're going to be more successful. And the natural result of success is profit. Hello.
True.
Right?
True. And loyal employees as well.
Yep. Yep. One of the mistakes I see executives make is they hire leaders and then give them tasks to do. So instead of being leaders, they're busy executing within the productive structure of the business, which is counterintuitive. Being a leader of 20, 50, 500 people means that you're connecting with them all. You can't connect with them all if you're executing tasks within the business. Leadership is a job. And it's actually my favorite part of business. I love teaching people how to be amazing leaders. That is my favorite thing, not only to do, but also to teach.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So what have you learned about decision making from the soul versus decision making from the ego? And how can leaders tell the difference?
Decision making from the ego is all about control and manipulation. It's about finding an outcome and trying to make decisions based on what that outcome is, as opposed to, like we talked about earlier, that magic that wants to be expressed through that company, through that department. And I want to also contextualize ego, because ego gets a bad rap, right? Everybody thinks, oh, my ego. It's not a good thing. Our ego is our personality. Our ego is the culmination of our whole life, right? And it's not bad. It's not wrong. It's simply the human expression of us. So when you bring in the soul, you get multiple streams of intelligence and you get a better result. Does that make sense?
It does, yes. I kind of share your viewpoint on the ego, because I'm starting to think now that the ego is not necessarily bad, but I think you just have to have a relationship with the ego more so than to try to conquer it. Because you know that when you first start this journey, you hear a lot about ego death, and I have done many psychedelic experiences where I've had ego deaths. But then as I've gone down more the path, I've realized that the ego is there to still protect you, because sometimes it actually comes in and is there to protect you. It's like, don't go into that place. You know what I mean? Look over there. You know what I mean? You mash the brakes on your car, right? That is the ego talking to you, right? So I'm starting to realize it's about having a relationship with the ego, which I guess I didn't think of it this way, but it is your personality. So I guess it's just having a relationship with yourself, basically. And, sometimes you have to use your heart. Then other times, the personality or the ego would say, well, actually, no, this is for me to do now. And then is having the discernment to realize which one you need to choose in that moment that would give you your growth and to help you reach your highest potential. So even that opinion that I had before on the ego and crushing the ego and conquering it has changed over some years as well, because I thought the ego was all bad, but I realize now and I didn't think of it like that, but I guess it is your personality,
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to invest $100,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want everybody's opinion, right? You want to gather data.
True.
So your ego has information it wants to share. Your mental constructs have information it wants to share. Your soul has information it wants to share. And your emotional body, the within, has emotional information it wants to share. And could you imagine the sheer power of the decision you made if you took into consideration all the information? Nobody no one source of information supersedes the other, right? They all come together. And then when you lock in on what's the optimal final decision, you know it, you feel it, it's part of you. So everybody gets a vote. Nobody gets to run the show. Make sense?
Wow, I never thought of it like that, but that is very interesting. Very interesting. Well, you're blowing my mind here, to be honest with you. Okay, so what's one corporate myth about success or productivity that spiritual wisdom completely dismantles?
Well, we've definitely talked about profit. I think that's one.
Okay.
And I think the other one is that, and this goes back to communication, collaboration, connection. When you have a team and you hire somebody, you hire them to execute within a specific parameter. You know, they have a job description. Right? That's great. And the first year is all about learning about the job, getting good at it. But if you really want to capitalize in a good way on the potential within your organization, figure out what really lights somebody up. Figure out, it's what I call their brilliance. Every one of us has a unique brilliance that is our natural expression. Our brilliance is the thing that people call us to help them with. Like for me, my brilliance is helping people transcend where they are today and moving into their next step. I'm a catalyst. I'm somebody that acts as a mirror to help you see the potential within, right? When we understand what our unique brilliance is, which aligns with our soul purpose, when we can do that for somebody else, when we can help them find their brilliance and then express it within the corporate culture, you have just expanded your capacity and capability beyond hiring individuals to execute functions. Does that make sense?
A lot of sense. A lot of sense. Because I had a bit of a moment, even with my assistant, where like basically I have her helping with the podcast because things got so chock-a-block for me that I just couldn't do everything. And I gave her some tasks. And I remember a conversation we had before, and she absolutely likes the new role in terms of helping me and stuff. And she's very much a huge part of the success of what we are building right now, because what's happening now with the podcast is that basically my podcast is a library where the best minds actually come and speak on it and on my podcast. And when I first started this show, the Conscious Man 7 podcast, I had no idea. I just was told, the voice came in and said, do podcasts. And I said, all right, I can do this thing. And like now, because I released 106 episodes so far. And what's happening is that the guests are getting better and better and better. And I'm even in awe because I'm like, how can the guy from Barbados attract all of these brilliant minds to come on his show? And it's becoming a cosmic library for the evolution of consciousness, which is what the podcast is becoming. And this conversation is a confirmation of that. And with my assistant now doing other things now that I know she really likes, it's kind of like, and I've shared the vision of where I want to take it. And now she says, okay, coach, I'm going to help you. And like, just simple words like that get me kind of like, I mean, for a man, I'm not afraid to say, it gets me warm on the inside, where like someone actually is like, really likes what they're doing and they're committed, and like, I help to support her as much as possible. So like, yeah, everything you're saying is just completely resonating with me, you know? So I just lost for words because this conversation is like blowing my mind, to be honest with you. So,
Well, it's affirming everything that you know within.
yes.
Like and that's the key, right? When you hear something that is true for you, that is right for you, you can feel it, you know it, and you're meant to hear it. You're meant to receive the information when it can most be applied in your life, when you're ready.
Like I said, right? Like everything now I just feel like I'm guided now, and like I just work on intuition now. Is this I don't know how to explain it to people who've not gotten to that point in their life, but the voice just comes in, and it just say, okay, do this, do that. And sometimes like I'm a bit lost because like I be doing things and there's no voice. And then I was like, well, what am I going to do? And then all of a sudden, boom, it just comes in. So
yeah,
it's one of those relationships, I guess, with yourself that for me is more now of trust and belief and certainty, faith, you know, is like love as well. So there's a lot of different things together that that's happening to me all at the same time. And like the mad thing is that it's all being documented on the podcast. So like I have grown exponentially since I've started this show, and I just see the future's bright. I know what's coming in the world, but I'm actually excited because the possibilities that this show is going to create for people, because I get messages from people all over the world, and like they're saying like, Todd, man, please keep doing what you're doing because like I'm learning so much. And you know, like I just like so grateful to and humble to have people like you to come on the show, you know? So
thank you.
yeah, you're welcome, man. So you channel soul level wisdom. What does that process feel like from the inside, and how can others begin cultivating that sensitivity?
Well, so cultivating becoming more sensitive to the energy around you is simply practice, like the piano. You just have to do it and trust it and acknowledge it. Everything you just said. And the journey is iterative, right? If you look back at yourself 5 years ago, you were doing just 3%. Today, you're probably doing 25%, but it feels like 100 because the growth has been so huge. So just imagine where it's going to go from here, right? So cultivate it. Keep doing it. Keep going. Keep using your intuition. Keep trusting yourself. Keep going within. And as for channeling's pretty awesome. Channeling is on a spectrum. There are trance channels who just completely allow themselves to be a conduit through other guides to come through. And there's also what I do, which is conscious channeling, where, and I'm always in channel. I'm always checking in with my guides constantly. I often say things that I hadn't planned on saying, or talking about things I hadn't planned on talking about, because they come in and they want me to share that. Now, why? Why do they want me to share what I end up saying? Again, we go back to our perspective is very narrow. Like it's you and me having a conversation, but there are going to be hundreds or thousands of tens of thousands of people listening. I don't know them. I don't know what they need to hear, but my guides do. So the universe, in its infinite wisdom, can tap into all of the energies of people who are going to listen and know what is optimal for them to hear. And so a couple of things will happen. It'll highlight, when you listen to something, you go in and out of listening. They'll hear exactly what they need to hear, or they'll turn it on when they need to hear it. And That's channeling. Channeling is opening myself up to wisdom that is greater than myself. And I channel several different groups. I've channeled Mary Magdalene. I've channeled Jesus. I have a group called the 99 whose primary focus is on the evolution of humanity. I have another group of divine feminine energies whose primary focus is on anchoring divine feminine energy on the planet. I have another group who is represented by a being called Eli, and they're more my business group. They're all about facilitating information that will help with socioeconomic change, business restructuring, bringing business and bringing spirituality into politics, business, all of our different constructs that we've built. And when I channel, I have a like this direct connection through my crown chakra, and I just open it up and they'll give me information auditorily. They'll give me visual clues. If I'm right on task, I'll get goosebumps. I'll feel if it's really big and important and really vital, I'll get this huge wave of love. It's unlike anything you could imagine. It's like taking this big vat of love and just dipping you in and letting you swim around for a while. It's ecstasy. It's incredible. And you've mentioned this a few times. It's exactly why I don't do psychedelics. Because I can get there without the aid of chemicals or natural substances. I can't do any of that stuff because it would just it would tip me over. Yeah.
This is why I say psychedelics is not for everyone, but for me,
yeah,
it has been huge. And honestly, I wouldn't be where I am now without psychedelics. That's an absolute fact, because my personality is that I'm very stubborn, and the psychedelics kind of really gave me that shake that I needed. And so it was every modality is not for everyone, but for me, absolutely, I 100% wouldn't be the person I am today if it weren't for that. So,
I agree. And you have to go within and feel, is this for me? And you'll know.
Yeah.
You'll know.
Yeah, because they actually called me even before I did them, where I knew in my life I needed a change. I needed something. And it just came up one day, and I was like, all right, well, nothing I'm doing is working, so let's give it a try. You know what I'm saying? And from that day in 2019, never looked back. And I've been doing psychedelics now since then. But even up to the weekend of my birthday. So when the show comes out, it'll give me a few weeks after my birthday. But the Saturday before my birthday, I did a 10-gram hero's journey of the albino mushroom. Oh my gosh. Honestly, I've done several ceremonies, but I think it's probably the most powerful experience I've ever had in my life, to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm still integrating the information because it was so much.
Yeah. But
what a journey it was. So, like I say, some people is meditation, some people are born with the gifts, some people psychedelics, So it's a matter of finding which one is for you. Breath work, ice baths, find the thing that works for you and just do it, and you'll know. So
agree.
You've said elevating one soul elevates the collective. What's happening globally right now that gives you hope humanity is waking up?
Oh, the energy on the planet is shifting exponentially. It's evidenced through CMEs and the solar flares, the coronal mass ejections. It's evidenced through the Schumann resonance, which is the measurement of the heart's electromagnetic field. It's evidenced through the coming together of communities to support and help each other. If it's evidenced through the spirituality becoming normalized, it's evidenced through some of the decisions we're seeing in the political arenas, in Britain with Andrew. Like, holy shit, who would have expected that? Right?
Yeah.
Like, solid decision.
Yeah.
I support it. So I think we're seeing it in bits and pieces in a number. Astrology is another place. I listen to Pam Gregory, and she's chef's kiss, spot on. And she always provides evidence on planetary movements. And that includes not only the standard astrology, but also Vedic astrology out of India. So I just think there's so many signals out there that is providing evidence that the planet's evolving. And what I know through what I have channeled myself is that the Earth is raising her vibration. We're inhabitants on the Earth, and we're at choice. We can choose to evolve, or we can choose to hang on and stay where we're at. No bad decisions. It's just personal. What do you want to do?
Yeah, I'm seeing a shift as well, because simply the feedback I'm getting from people from my podcast and the clients that I work with, they all are feeling something inside, and and this is why I tell people, like, getting into shape is one of the most important things you will actually do in your life, because you open up the door to a whole different possibilities. And one of the things that really happens is mindset has to shift, right? And then what happens when you start vibrating at a higher level, all these things that were not necessarily seen become seen, because it's like, the higher the vibration, the more light you receive, the more light, the more information, the more consciousness you get, the more gnosis you get. So, it's an important step of getting into shape. So I do agree with you on that level. So some people fear their own power or intuitive gifts. How do we move from resistance to responsibility in using our inner wisdom?
We have to choose it. It really is simple. Our resistance is simply giving our fears voice. And you have to allow yourself to have more. You have to say yes to your own evolution. There has to be an internal desire to create the evolution. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you have to want it, man. Because the thing is, though, is that although you have to want it, I think that there's a bit of a spectrum on wanting, because one of my mentors says something that's very true. He says, you don't get what you want, you get what you have to have. So wanting is, I think, the first level. But if you have to have it, because the pain is so much, the unhappiness is so great, the calling is so big that it's like, I have to have this thing. That is when you get the shift. That is when you move. So I think that, you say, yeah, well, I want to get into shit, or I want to have this car, or I want to have a new job, or I want to travel to Timbuktu, right? You know what I mean? It's great to want it, but if you have to have it, then that's when the shift really comes in, because it's coming from a deeper place and a deeper purpose,
Well, it's also being in alignment because we get exactly what we need when we need it.
Yeah.
Both opportunities and blessings.
Yeah, very true. So a lot of people are feeling overwhelmed by what's happening globally right now. Politics, conflict, division, the uncertainty. And it's raising a big question. Do you believe the rise in global chaos is part of collective healing? And what role does personal awakening play in restoring balance to the world?
I mentioned it earlier. The systems are starting to break. They're starting to fall apart because they don't work. They're not there for the collective. They're there for a subset of the collective. And the greatest influence we can have is to do our own work, to do what best serves us and allows us to shine as bright as we can, because that contributes to the collective environment. Division breaks us apart and fosters darkness. When we are in community, when we are for the good of all, regardless of what they think or feel, then we're contributing to the blessing of everyone. And it's at the community. I've believed this for many years. The community is what's going to change the world, not the politics, not the billionaires, it's the communities, the individuals who band together.
I very much agree, because I think that one of the problems we have is centralized government. And I think that when you go back a few thousand years, where we had smaller cities or we had villages that were sort of like autonomous, they just seemed to work better because everything was on a local level. And then it means then that you were part of the change, and you were influential in the talks, the meetings, the decisions, the doing of the work, But because we have this centralized government model, what happens is that there's a big detachment from the actual community itself, because people are living in an ivory tower. And like you said, it's only a very select few that end up benefiting from the system. And the collective are the ones that are left behind. So when we start to do work on ourselves, then not only we change ourselves, but we change our world. And when we change our world, we end up changing the world, because people are going to show up differently. Opportunities are going to come differently. People will resonate with you differently, So yeah, I do concur that the community is definitely something that will cause one of the bigger shifts in this evolution of our consciousness.
Well, it's because the consequences and the outcomes aren't visible. Does that make sense? People, when decisions are made in a centralized government, we don't see the impact at the community level. Whereas when we make them at the community level, we immediately see what the consequence or the outcome is, and we see how we can positively or not positively, negatively impact.
Yeah, I agree. How can men, especially conscious men, connect with their intuitive nature without feeling like they're losing strength or logic?
Oh, that's a great question. And it's such a profound opportunity. So there's two ways to manifest or to create something, right? You go out and you do it physically, like you build a house or you create something physically. The other way to manifest is to do what we've been talking about this whole time and go within, set an intention, and co-create with the universe. So the first way of manifesting is masculine. And the second way of manifesting is feminine. So when men allow themselves to develop their feminine side, be more in touch with their emotions, and co-create with the universe instead of controlling and managing and building things, they open themselves up to this side of themselves. And excuse me, there are, men, I think, kind of got the short end of the stick in a way. I think both genders did. And men have to suppress their emotions. They have to be super successful. Success is clearly and narrowly defined for men. Up until the last 5-8 years, a man was defined by what he did, by his job, which sucks, right? So I think letting go of societal norms, stepping into their feminine, being more in touch with their inner landscape, being more in touch with their emotional body. And let's also talk about the feminine, because for women to really move into a more flow state of their expression, they have to be stronger boundaries. They've got to stop being the caretakers of everybody except themselves. They have this opportunity of learning how to create their own world rather than relying on somebody else to give it to them. They also have an opportunity to step into a more gentle way of expressing, as opposed to normalizing women being masculine and manipulative and controlling. So I think there's both sides of the equation have opportunities. And the key is, as we've been talking about this whole time, is understanding what is optimal for you. Like for me, when I was in corporate America, man, I was do, controlling, managing, prescribing. I had to learn how to let go, to trust, to surrender is a big theme for me. And learn how to co-create with the universe. So what is it for you? Because some women are too masculine. Some men need to introduce the feminine. So there's a whole spectrum. It's really finding what's optimal for you.
Yeah, and Carl Jung calls it the amena in the man and the amenas in the woman. And for me, and I think you and I share similarities because you were in finance, I was in engineering. So it's a very logical, black and white, fact-based, yes or no type of environment where there is just deliver. Like, I remember I had a colleague that used to sit next to me, and he used to joke, right? He used to say, "Hey, Cave," because he was always calling my last name, "Hey, Cave, I don't care how you do it, just get it done, yeah?" No, he was on the same level, but he used to joke, right? Because our boss was kind of like that guy. So when he would come and tell us things, he didn't care about how we were going to do it. So he used to come and say, "Hey, Cave, remember that thing, yeah? Just get it done, yeah? I don't care how you do it, just get it done." And that was our running joke between us, right? So when you come from that environment now, let go, faith, surrender, what's that? That's super scary, right? Like order, control, structure, that was my world, right? Like as a civil engineer, you're given a plan and say, okay, go and build it. You have to reverse engineer how to build it, work out the logistics, work out all the planning permissions, sequence the building, all that kind of stuff. The gangs, the trades that you need to have. Is a super masculine environment. Testosterone is high. I mean, like, trust me, like men are, the thing about men though is that even though men are very rough with men, we operate in a realm of respect. So once we understand hierarchy very, very well. So once you have like respect from men, we don't really care if the other person likes us or not, as long as they respect us. That's it. And that's how we deliver. So I kind of agree with you where it is kind of difficult. A man's job is a lot harder than I guess a lot of women tend to give credit for, because what you said is true. And I said this to a girl recently, right? And it's only when she realized it, she was like, I said to her, like, men don't have the luxury of, like, if they have a family, to take days off. No matter how you feel, you go to work. You are not happy because of an argument you have with your missus. The world doesn't care. You got to go to work still. If you feel sick, unless you're dying in bed, you get up and you go to work, right? I said, society doesn't allow men to have feelings. We get punished for having feelings. I said to her, because she was a stay-at-home mom, I said, but so did you never not realize, like, these things about your husband? She was like, not really, because he just used to bring home the money. I said, good. So now you understand that it didn't matter if he was sick, he felt like it, or he was tired. He did it anyway. And when he worked overtime, he didn't do it because he wanted to. He did it because he had to. And when I communicated that to her, she had more respect for her husband, because she realized, actually, when I don't feel like doing something, I just don't do it. I said, but a man's world doesn't operate like that, right? No one cares about our feelings, right? There's no one there for us. We only have ourselves. The problem with that is that you become overly sort of like isolationist, and you don't get in touch with, well, basically, let's put it, I'll be frank. What is intuition? What's that? Like, you can't harness intuition if you're solely in that headspace. So it is a lot more challenging than I think that men are given credit for. And yes, there are bad men out there, but there are a lot of great men out there. But all men want really is just a little bit of recognition that for the good work that they do. And then you guess what? They work even harder when you give them a bit of recognition. Because men are so simple that you just find out what tickles the fancy of that guy. You give it to him, off he goes. He just delivers. Simple, basic, and programmable. But that's how we are, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, I think this is a quote out of my book, but what most people want is to be recognized, to be heard, to be seen. And when we receive that, it allows us to feel safe and secure and validated, so we can go out and do the things that support ourselves and support others. And I think systematically getting in touch with our emotions, knowing how we feel, giving ourselves permission to ask for what we need, giving ourselves permission to receive what we mean. How often do you get a compliment and or somebody gets a compliment and they say, oh no, no, that's not true, but thank you. That's very nice of you. But we deflect it.
So I can answer that question as a man. Sorry to interrupt. Hardly ever.
Yeah.
Men hardly ever get compliments. Ever. So just to give context on what you're saying from a man's point of view, we hardly get good feedback or told anything good in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's everybody. I don't think it's exclusive to men. I think that's everybody. I think, and again, this is just my opinion, we have a global epidemic of unworthiness. People who feel unworthy. And that manifests by deflecting compliments, by not being in touch with how we feel, because it's too painful. So the simplest thing, treat people how you want to be treated. That's it. And let me also take that back to corporate. When you have somebody in your team and you tell them, I see what you did, I appreciate what you did, you did well. The performance for that individual is going to go up exponentially. Right? So if we do that for others, well, how about what if we do that for ourselves? Like, damn, I did good at that. That was awesome. How often do you say that to yourself? Not enough. Right?
That's a good question. I think most people don't do that, to be honest.
No, I don't think so either. I don't do it very often for myself.
I've been having to do that of recent because of my journey. So I tend to do that a lot more because one of the things that I teach this to my clients and I practice it is stacking your wins. And so, for example, if like I say to them, okay, you're not doing your daily habits or meditating. So if you meditated twice this week and before you were doing 0, that's a win. Cha-ching. So celebrate that win. So pat yourself on the back and say, well done, mate. You know, that was a good beat. You did it twice. So let's try to see if we can do 3. So if after a couple of weeks, then you manage to get a 3, cha-ching. That's another win. So pat yourself on the back, right? So because of my journey, I start my wins to create this sort of like echo chamber of positivity in my life to remind me that I'm actually doing good things. And this is what I teach to my clients as well, because I find that we don't give ourselves enough credit for where we've come from, our journey, what we've had to overcome, and how we are now. So, yeah, you know, I call it stacking your wins and complimenting yourself on how well you've done. Same thing, you know, it positively reinforces the work that you're doing, you know?
Yeah, agreed. And like attracts like.
True.
If you're feeling good about yourself, you're going to attract things that make you feel good about yourself.
Exactly. This is why I tell them stack your wins. Keep stacking your wins, right? And the more wins you stack, guess what? You feel like a winner. You think like a winner. And guess what? You are a winner. And that, when I say it to them like that, all my clients are like, yeah, I'm a winner. I say it again. I am a winner. I say it again. I am a winner. Boom. So guess what? You already are a winner, right? Because the I am is the most powerful statement you can ever make. So, you know, I put in a lot of like reverse engineering psychology into my coaching and my approach because I've had to do it to myself in order to get where I am, right? So everything I teach and I talk about is from experience and just having to fail a lot of times and figuring out how to do stuff, you know?
Yeah, how to make it work. And I think that's when we teach from experience, those are the lessons that have the most impact because people can feel the authenticity behind what we're sharing.
Yes, definitely. So your book, Manual for Humanity, is a powerful phrase. If every person read one paragraph that you could transform their life, what would it be?
You know, a manual for humanity is everything that we've talked about. What I did was I took all of my experiences and I put them in a book, and then I added everything I teach. So I have a workshop called The Alchemy of an Intentional Life. It's 6 months, and it's all about applying all of the techniques and tools and wisdom that I've shared today. And that's what makes up a manual for humanity. And I didn't mention this before we started, but just a couple of weeks ago, I released the companion workbook. It's called Workbook for Wisdom. It's a companion to a manual for humanity. So it takes all of the things that we've talked about, and it gives you exercises and it gives you journal prompts and it gives you objectives, because I'm an experiential learner. If you tell me something, I'll retain the information. But if you show me how I can do it for myself and give me tools, then it becomes a habit. Then it becomes something that I feel and know. So where a manual for humanity gives you all of this information, everything that we've talked about and way more, the workbook for wisdom tells you how to put it into play. So it's a dynamic duo.
Awesome stuff. So you say personal evolution doesn't have to be disruptive or chaotic. What are the keys to moving through change with grace?
Yeah, it's tapping into the within. It's trusting that the next step you take is the one that is optimal for you. It really is. Everything comes from within. If you want chaos, ignore it. If you want chaos, do the opposite of what you think is the right thing to do. It really is. The universe will respond with chaotic intervention and 2x4 moments if you ignore your intuition.
And they come fast as well once they start. That's the thing about it.
Well, especially right now with the way the planet's evolving, we're getting instant responses to the things that are showing up in our life. 100%.
Yeah, definitely. It is. I keep saying all the time that it feels like time is speeding up, you know?
I agree.
I don't have proof that it is, but it certainly feels that way, you know?
Yeah.
So if someone is listening right now and feels lost, what's the very first step they should take to reconnect with their soul?
Well, there's two things. The first step is to acknowledge where you're at. And the second step is to ask for help. Don't do it by yourself. If you're feeling lost, having other people come into your life and provide a mirror for what you need to see to get unlost, to find yourself, is essential. We do not change in a vacuum. We cannot facilitate lasting, deep change without interaction with other people. So whether it's having a confidential conversation with a therapist, whether it's employing a coach who has the same values that you do, whether it's having a conversation with a friend, be open, vulnerable, and transparent about where you're at and how you're feeling so that you can receive support and help.
You know, that is very powerful because I find that one of the biggest things that we as a collective don't do is ask for help. And for some reason, we've been conditioned to think that asking for help is weakness. But I think it's actually the opposite, because in asking for help, like if you genuinely want help where you've exhausted all means of trying to solve it yourself, asking for help is a sign of strength, saying, look, this area I am weak in, and I am going to overcome the fear of or shame or guilt that you have to say, look, I need help. And then if, like you said, if it's a coach or a mentor or a guide or someone that's aligned with you, that's been there where you are, done the journey, they can actually help you to navigate through that situation, because they've already got the lessons. So you don't need to go through the same lessons and more pain, right? But man, we human beings, we're kind of stubborn creatures where we are addicted to pain, and it's like a drug, right? So yes, I think asking for help is very, very powerful. So,
Me too.
So let's get you on this one. So what would the world look like if humanity truly lived by the principles in your book? And what's one change we could all start with today?
What would the world look like? There would be no homelessness. There would be no food scarcity. children would be safe and loved and nurtured. I think we'd solve a lot of the world's ills, societal ills. And we just start with ourselves. We start by acknowledging what we need, asking for help, and receiving it. Because we can't know everything. And like you said, when we allow people to share their wisdom, we both grow. We grow by receiving the wisdom. They grow by affirming the wisdom that they have within. So, and figure out what's important to you. You know, is it saving the trees or an animal or the oceans or people, or is it holding space? What's important to you? Make that a priority in your life.
Yes, very much about finding your purpose. Wow.
Yeah.
This has been an awesome, awesome conversation. And I am going to probably listen to this episode back a couple of times myself, because I think that you shared some really valuable information. And I think you've given my audience a lot to take away. And it almost feels like a psychedelic moment for me, because like when you do psychedelics, you get a lot of information and you have to integrate it. So I think I'm going to need even myself an integration period and process from everything you shared, because there's a lot of wisdom that you've brought here. And so with that being said, please tell the lovely listeners at the Conscious Man 7 where they can find you. Tell us about any things that you offer, if you do coaching, how you can help other people, workbooks, website, all of that good stuff where they can find you. Everything, Teresa.
Thank you. So my website is teresawornstaff.com. I have a free trust circle that I hold every day, every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific. And you can sign up on my website to get the Zoom link for that. And that's been going on for more than 5 years. I teach an amazing course called The Alchemy of an Intentional Life. It is 6 months, but most people stay in it for 2 years because they achieve exponential growth and alignment to their purpose. I have 2 books. I have another one coming out later. A Manual for Humanity and Workbook for Wisdom, which is all about integrating the concepts in A Manual for Humanity. I run a global summit called the Global Evolutionary Summit. You can learn more on my website. And I do episodic workshops, and I also speak. So you'll find information about both of those things. Or what I recommend, if you want to keep up to date, is get on my email list and you'll hear about all of the above.
Awesome, awesome. So everything, Teresa, will be in the description of this podcast. So guys, this is the season of gluttony, as I call it. We are about to have all of these work socials and indulge in a lot of excessive eating and drinking. So if you don't want to put on that extra 3 to 5 kilos come January, if you want to start your spiritual and physical and mental journey, hit me up on Instagram at Adriano_246 or my name, Todd Cave. Send me a message and let's have a chat and see if you're a good fit for the Compound Body Training Army, because we're trying to help you to level up mentally, physically, and spiritually. And if you would like to support this podcast, you can do that by visiting our merch store. We have some cool tank tops, hoodies, shirts, and sweats. Link will be in the description of our store. It's called Todd and Me. It's on Amazon. And your help patronizing the store helps us to do some time and research and have some great guests like Teresa, and also things like editing and all that kind of stuff. And if you are on a spiritual journey, or you would like to start a spiritual journey and you would like some help removing some fears and traumas, I can help you to get some magic mushrooms. So again, hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 or my name, Todd Cave, on Facebook. and it will help you to get some magic mushrooms. Also, if you would like to also support this podcast, but in a different way, and none of the above resonates with you, you can, and you just don't like ads, you can become a member of our Patreon or our locals community. You will get early releases of all podcasts. You will get direct access to me because I get tons of messages on social media, but all of my clients and my Patreon members get first direct access to me in terms of messaging. And there's some other cool perks like exclusive episodes. And, as the community grows, we'll have some live Zoom talks and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to help support the podcast, help us grow, help us to get more great guests like Teresa on, just for a few bucks a month, and you get no ads on the podcast, you can visit the links below in the show notes and become a member of our Patreon or locals community. So guys, if this conversation stirred something deeper within you, if Teresa's words reminded you that your soul already knows the way, then don't just keep that feeling. Share it. Send this episode to a friend who's ready to awaken. Tag me on Instagram at Adriano_246 or the Conscious Man 7 podcast, or on Facebook by my name Todd Cave, and let us know what spoke to you most. Because this isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. It's about conscious men and women choosing to live from truth, love, and purpose. And remember, the world doesn't change because we talk about awakening. It changes because we live it. This has been another episode of the Conscious Man 7 podcast. I am your host, Todd Cave. Thank you for being part of the Conscious Man 7 community. Until next time, folks, stay aware, stay grounded, and stay conscious. Teresa, many thanks again for being a guest on the Conscious Man 7 podcast. This has been a very, very awesome conversation, and I can't wait to re-listen to it, to be honest. And remember, folks, keep smiling, keep shining, and keep being the change you want to see. Speak to you soon. Cheers and namaste.